In this video, you will learn 2 wire wrapping weaves that I use pretty consistently and use them to make a pendant like this one. So these are all the tools that you're going to need. The straightening pliers and the coated pliers are optional. You'll need all the other pliers. Clamp is optional as well. Saves your hands really well from having to hold on to the wires. We're going to start with our 18 gauge base wire. And then I'm going to use the clamp to hold down the wire and straightening pliers to straighten. Just run them across the wire. And this 18 gauge wire is about 13 inches or 33 centimeters. And you'll have 2 of those, the same length. You can also just straighten with your fingers. With the clamp or without, you can hold with your other hand as well. Then you're going to have an 18 gauge round wire. The length on this wire is going to be about 14 feet or 4 meters. And you're going to want to find the middle section of your wire. So this is the middle section of mine here. You're going to want to take one of your 18 gauge wires and wrap around the weaving wire onto that 18 gauge wire 5 times. 2, 3, 4, 5. Tighten up your wires. Then take your second 18 gauge wire and set it on top. Line up your ends to be even to each other. All right, hold with your left hand or your non-dominant hand firmly the 2 wires together. And then wrap the small 28 gauge weaving wire around the 2 base wires 3 times. 2, 3. At this point, it's nice to come over to the ends that you're working with and just push them out into a little V here. And that's going to create an opening for your weaving wire to go through each time. So then 5 times again. 1, in between 2, 3, 4, 5. And then you're just going to repeat this pattern. With wire weaving, you want to constantly be straightening out your wires with a gentle pull. So I'm pulling with my thumb as it goes in between the wires here. And then I'm pushing with my pointer finger to push it tight. And then pushing with my thumb up. In between, push together with the pointer. All right, that's 5 times there. Push together to tightly add the weaves on. Then you can use your tweezer nose pliers here. This is optional. You can just use your hands to push it tight, but it really pushes nice and neat when you push the flat edge of the pliers on the coils. And once I get a little bit started, I like to use the clamp to clamp down where my hand was holding to save my hand from having to push. And then also you want to take your opposite side weaving wire and just set it out of the way so that it doesn't get tangled with the wire that you're working with. And as you're weaving, run your hands down the wire all the way and make sure you're not getting any kinks caught up in your wire as you're weaving. The best thing that you can do to work on your weaving is to practice going really slow and just being methodical with pulling the wires, even if it's taking a long time at first. Eventually you will get faster, and as you're going fast, you'll also have really neat wraps, which really will set you apart from other wire wrappers who are weaving and who don't have as clean of weaves. And as you go down, you can bring your clamp down to get a tighter hold on your wires. So off camera, I've woven about 2 inches off into the right side that I was working with. So now I'm going to flip around so I can continue weaving on the same side with my right hand. I'm gonna have to crisscross my weaving wires, so I'm just gonna straighten those back out, separate them on each side so they don't get tangled. Right, and then this weave is the same on the front and the back, so that's why you want to make sure that everything is pushed together nice and tight on the back too. And then you will go ahead and add your clamp to hold back on, and you will wrap the same wrap around until you get about 2 more inches on your right side of the weave. So together your whole weave, you're going to want it to be about 4 inches long. So here I've wrapped up about 3 inches of the weave here, and I have my stone here. So I'm going to wrap it around the stone in the middle, and then I'm just going to push the wires around. Just gently hold them in place. And your lengths will depend on your stone as well, but once you get that wrap, that main wrap pulled around, then you can weave while it's on the piece, while it's on the stone, to measure out the size. So I'm going to secure the bottom first, and I like if it hooks right on that little indention in the stone. Use the indentions in your stones. All right, and then here I'm just going to hold firmly with my left hand, and I'm going to continue to weave here. So I'm going to make sure I've got my V. All right. And the reason why I'm doing this on the stone is so I can see exactly how much weave I need to add to finish. Right, and this part might be a little more tricky if you're not used to weaving as much. Just hold firm with your left hand, go nice and slow. You can even push and make a little bit more of a V in here. And as you wrap the wire around both wires, pulling it nice and tight, in the next part, that's going to pull the V together. So make sure you're tightening as you go. Right, and then I accidentally put the weave on the opposite side that I did not mean to. And sometimes with weaving, I do make these mistakes still. So I'm just going to gently unwrap the same way that I wrapped. This does weaken the wire, so some people say not to do it, but I find that it's better to gently fix the mistake as you go. And you'll just have a little bit of a crinkle here, but it's all right because we're just going to coil it back around. Now the top wire, the way that I'm holding it. All right, so there's 5. And 1, 2, 3, So I keep accidentally coiling around the bottom because that is the way that I do it each time. And another variation that I'll show you is, so that coil is on one side, opposite side. We have our 3 coils around both wires, and then you can come around the top and do interchanging back and forth. And this will give you a different look. This is a different type of weave there. Great, and now I'm gonna just go back. I'm going to hold the wire firm and continue wrapping it around. All right, and then here, and this part is like a design preference. So this is the original piece that I had and the way that I did the design here. But I'll show you. So I'm gonna want, for my design, I'm gonna want my spiral to sit here. So I'm going to pull through and have my coil around the top wire, because this is going to be the front of the pendant. And I'm going to take the bottom wire, there's a lot of excess here, and I'm going to coil it around the bottom of the stone to secure the stone in place nice and tight. Right, and that's going to make it a lot more secure. I won't have to hold as hard with my left hand. And in the back, I'm going to clip off with my cutters and leave just a little tail there. Then I'll take my round nose pliers and I'm going to pinch and twist my wrist, my right hand to the right, and that's going to curl up this little piece here. I'm going to slowly curl it in on itself until it's got a little loop. And I will use my tweezer nose pliers to push down the loop. And I'm going to feel it, and it feels a little pokey there. So I'm just going to come back with my clippers and clip off the very end piece there. And squish the loop together. I like to finish the loops a lot of the time just because it gets that little pokey point out of the way and it doesn't feel pokey anymore, so that's going to be on the back there. You could have also made the little swirl in the front of the pendant for more design. So now I'm going to straighten. I have a little kink in my wire here. I'm just going to push it away from each other. Gently pull out the kink. Run my hand all the way down. Separate the wires. Get them out of the way from one another. Then I'm just going to coil just around this wire here. And that little part's just in the back, but that is another variation of this weave that you could do all the way down the wire here. You just have to be careful because the back of that weave is not the same as the front. And I'm just doing the same thing, pushing up with my thumb and down with my pointer finger. Got a nice tight coil there. So now I'm gonna get this one out of the way, and I want to wrap around to the front. All right, so this is my front. So I think the coiled part is long enough for what I want to do with it. So now I have some extra here that I'm going to go ahead and snip on the underneath part that's going to lay flat to the stone. You always want to snip away from parts that will be lying on your skin or facing out of the pendant. Use the needle nose or tweezers to push the end down. So I'm just going to bring this around to make a curve here. I'm just stopping, looking at the stone as I go. Then I'm going to snip, leaving a little extra wire to make my spiral. And as you work with spirals, you will be able to eyeball things better. Pinch down and twist to make your coil, to make your spiral. All right, and so I actually think that this is a little bit bigger than what I want it to be. So how you can make it smaller, I always would rather leave more on to snip it off. I'm gonna snip off the end of the spiral here and pinch. Again, you want the very tips of the pliers to be pinching firmly on the end. Alright, and I'm happy with that. So then I'm going to go, this is the front of my pendant, and I'm going to continue weaving on the top. And my goal with the length is that I want it to come around the back, and I want it to come up into the front so that I can make the bail there. Alright, so I'm going to move my wire. Now I just have one weaving wire sticking out. And I'm going to go ahead and pull this away from the stone a little bit to make it easier to weave. straighten my bottom out. So that length looks right about good to curve up to the top. So how we have here, we want to curve up to make this veil. So firmly hold with your left hand or non-dominant hand And with our right hand, we're just going to push the wire up towards the point of the top of the stone. All right, I'm going to keep pushing, and then I want to just straighten it back up. Just work with it until I'm happy with the top, if it's straight. And then next you're going to want to take these two wires here and push them into a V. And this is going to be the front of your bale. And this stone is more of a long stone, so I'm going to want the bale to be a smaller V. If the bottom of my stone was, if my pendant was a thicker pendant, then I would want to make a wider V, and that's just up to you on how balanced you want your pendant to look or your specific preference. All right, and then we're going to turn the pendant sideways so that our V here is sideways. In this next step, we'll go in between, over the top wire 1, 2 times, push down, we'll come in between and on top of the bottom wire and go around 1, 2 times. So in between, over the top, 1, 2, in between, over the top, 1, 2, make sure your wires are staying straight where you have them. See, this seems a little off, so I just want to straighten them back out. So you want this length to be the amount of bail you want in the front. So on this one is the front there. And then now we're going to do this top section here. So use your tweezer nose pliers and you're going to pinch right where the weave ends and push these parallel to one another. Straighten these out. So now they are parallel to each other. And then I'm going to weave to about here, because that's going to be enough for my top. So that's about 3/4 of an inch up that I'm going to weave. So I'm running out of wire here. So I will show you how to weave in a piece of wire if this happens to you also. So I'm going to be down on my bottom weave and I'm just going to weave it around one time and have my tail sticking out here. Then I'll take my new piece of 28 gauge weaving wire and I will wrap it. I'll hold this little tail down against the piece and I'll wrap it around one time. And this is going to make a little bit of an imperfection in the weave, but I'm just going to keep going with it and it will blend in. It helps to hold down with your fingers the sides as you're weaving. So I'm wrapping and then I'm just putting pressure with my left hand there. And these wires are starting to want to be closer together, so I'm just going to work with them, separate them. Okay, and I think that is enough. And give it a little squish with my pliers. And I still have these tails on. I'm just going to leave them for now. But that's why I say it's better to have more wire than less, because you can add it in, but it is a little more difficult to add it in versus to just continue solidly doing the weave. So now we're going to want to make the back of our bale. So we're going to pinch where the weave is, and we're going to make a crisscross. All right, and then I'm going to adjust according to how my sizing. So I want this to be about the same as the back. Maybe the back can be a little smaller, and that's okay. If the back is bigger, then you'll see it behind the front. And then where these wires are touching, I will want to bend them parallel. I'm going to do this one at the side, so I'll find the spot. All right, so these are open. They don't have to be exactly parallel, just open so you can get the weaving wire through again. But this is going to be the shape you want to make for your back of your bale. And then continue your corset weave, holding down when you need to. I did one too many, so I'm going to undo. All right, and then up, over. I'm going to hold with my finger, down, and this part is a little trickier, trying to get the wire to be nice and neat. So I try my best, but I don't worry as much because this is the back of the bale. Just try your best to get it tight as you can. You can also change the angle that you're weaving at to pull down a little more and tighten. So you're doing the same weave, you're just pushing it down instead of to the side. And it's getting tight here at the end. So as you can see, the front of my weave is a lot tighter and cleaner than the back, but I'm not too worried because it will be on the back. And to finish off this wire, I will coil 4 times And you could also continue to coil this wire to add more decoration. But at this point, I'm going to snip off on the inside part, and that's going to be on the inside once we pull it over. And then on the back, I'm going to snip off the wires where we added the wire in, one at a time to get them nice and close. And then I will take my tweezer nose pliers and push down all 3 wires. 1, and here are the other 2. I'm going to push towards the inside. Nice and flat. Right, and now I'm going to bend the bail. So you can use bail making pliers or pliers to push down, but I just like to use my finger. So I will just push around my pointer finger to the back, working with the bail. Right, so I have this, and I'll push in the back. It sits nice on this little crevice. And then I'm going to separate these 2 wires in the back. And I'm going to pinch with my tweezer nose pliers. I just find that I get a better grip. You can also use your hands. And I'm going to wrap around completely the bail here, and I'll leave that wire sticking out of the top. That will secure the bail, and then I'll show you with my hand. I'll wrap the other one around. And I'll line it up there, and then give these wires a nice curve with my hand. And these 2 wires are going to make my 2 swirls. So I want my bigger swirl to be, my bottom swirl to be bigger and my top swirl to be smaller. So I like the natural length that these are at. I'm not going to cut them. Then I'll take my round nose pliers, and I'm going to do the bottom coil first, the bottom spiral first, and I'm going to pinch the very end and turn inwards. And I want this one to be tight, so I'm going to make it very tight around the ends. And then I will keep tightening until I have this. And then I will take a flat pair of pliers. These are my coated pliers, so I don't scratch. And then I'm going to pinch. I'm going to pull away so I have room to work. And I'm going to push with my finger as I'm turning the swirl. And flatten. All right, until the swirl is all the way tightened. And then I'll push it down with my finger. So that's the bottom swirl. And then I'll do the same with the top. nice and tight. And then I'm going to pull it away. So you want to get the pliers right down on the side, and then you can push the pliers around to tighten. Alright, so that is our finished pendant. Alright. If this video excited you to try more wire weaving, comment a purple heart down below for a tutorial on how to make this woven adjustable ring. This ring uses the same 2 weaving patterns as the design in this video, but it's in a ring style. And don't forget to like and subscribe.